Hello and welcome to this series of video that we are presenting, where we are presenting the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Yvan Mathieu. I am a Marist priest from Canada, and I have a formation in Bible, and I'm teaching Old Testament at St. Paul University in Ottawa. So the purpose of those videos is really to give you a short idea, a short introduction to the first 11 chapters. Why the first 11 chapters? Because they are what we normally call the prehistory in the Bible. Why the prehistory? Because in chapter 12 of the book of Genesis, God is choosing Abraham. And his history would really start with the call of Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. So what do we find in those 11 chapters? It starts with the words, in the beginning, and it starts with the creation. And it goes from the creation to the time of Abraham. Historically speaking, some people would say that Abraham probably arrived at around 1900 before Christ. And of course, this is a difficult passage of the Bible, especially nowadays, because you probably heard of Darwin and the theory of evolution. And in many English-speaking countries, there's kind of a fight between those who are creationists, those who say the Bible has it right, and the evolutionist that says, no, it's Darwin who has it right. Maybe both have it right, because the Bible was not written to provide us with a scientific explanation of how things were made, but rather the Bible is written to tell us about what is God's plan for creation. And that's why it is important to start reading the Bible with this 11 first chapters. To begin with the beginning, if you prefer. Why is that? Well, because like in any written work, probably these chapters are the last ones that were written. They were probably written during or after the exile of the Jewish people in Babylon between 587 and so the end or the beginning of the 6th century before Christ. That's when they were captive in Babylon. The Jewish people were able to get into contact with creation myths, and that's probably where they discovered that God, their Savior God, that's how they see God, was also the creating God. And these narratives were born really quite late in the history of Israel. But like whenever you write a paper, you usually write the introduction and the conclusion at the end of a paper. And that's probably what happened with those texts. They were written at the end of the process when the Old Testament was created, but they are very important. Let's use an image to conclude that. Basically, we can compare Genesis chapter 1 until 11 like a cathedral's portico. If you visit Europe, you will see those beautiful cathedrals. Usually you are guided to a cathedral like this, and you don't want to run into the church to see what's inside. It's important, if you are in front of Notre Dame de Paris, for instance, to take a few minutes to contemplate what the beautiful facade that was built by those architects. And the facade is really meant to put you in the right spirit, to have a spiritual experience once you are inside. It's the same thing with the Bible. Those 11 chapters are really the cathedral's portico that allow us to be in the right spirit, to discover what is God's plan for humanity, and therefore to be ready to understand the rest of the Bible. That's what we shall see in our next video. Thank you.